Imagine a giant Sitka spruce, just towering over the Alaskan forest. It is massive, ancient, and deeply rooted in the soil.
Right.
Now, I want you to imagine that the bark, the branches, and even the green needles of that exact tree are physically built out of the remains of dead ocean salmon.
It sounds like science fiction, honestly.
It really does. But
I,
welcome to the Living Network. You are stepping through the virtual doors of the Bioforge field station, and your mission starts right now. And I want you to completely erase the image of science happening in some, I don't know, sterile, quiet room with white coats and bubbling glass jars.
oh, absolutely. We are leaving the lab behind today.
Exactly. The science we are doing in this deep dive happens out in the rugged, breathing, freezing, and thriving landscapes of Alaska.
Yeah, as a lead researcher stepping into the Bioforge, your mission for this deep dive is really to lay out the massive foundational ideas of ecosystems before you begin your full unit. We're going to look at how scientists use the absolute superpower of data to decode the hidden rhythms of nature.
Right, because reading those signals hidden in the environment, that gives you the ability to predict the future of an ecosystem.
Exactly. You understand how it adapts, and you can figure out how to protect species that might be, on the brink.
And let's be totally clear about why this matters, because understanding ecosystems, it isn't just about passing a 7th grade life science test.
No, not at all.
Up here in Alaska, this is literal survival knowledge. Understanding the living network around us is directly tied to food security and really cultural continuity. It is about knowing how the land sustains us and how we sustain it.
Yeah, that's such a vital point.
So, okay, let's unpack this a bit. Because when we say the word ecosystem, I think a lot of people just picture a bunch of animals running around a forest. But we aren't just talking about the living, breathing stuff, what scientists call the biotic factors.
Right, because a collection of bears, moose, and birds, that's just a biological zoo. It's not an ecosystem.
Yeah.
An ecosystem is really about how those living things collide with the abiotic factors, the dead non-living stuff. And honestly, the non-living pieces completely govern the living pieces.
Okay, govern them how? Give me an example.
Well, every single organism depends on specific environmental factors to survive. We are talking about the obvious things, like the availability of food, water, physical space, and shelter. But we are also talking about non-living forces.
Like the weather?
Yeah, weather, but also sunlight, oxygen, carbon dioxide, the exact chemical and mineral makeup of the soil, and temperature. The living network includes the plankton in the ocean, the seabirds, the moose, the microscopic decomposers in the dirt.
Right.
But their entire existence is dictated by those non-living boundaries.
Okay, let's look at the Denali moose population as an example of this, because I think it's fascinating. If you ask someone what limits a moose's survival, they'd probably say, wolves.
Well, for sure.
And sure, avoiding predators is a huge part of their day, but their survival is actually dictated by a completely non-living factor, the depth of the winter snow.
Yeah, the snow is everything.
Yeah.
During winters in Denali National Park with heavy snowfall, that deep snow physically restricts the movement of the moose. They are incredibly heavy animals.
Right, they weigh what, like 1,000 pounds?
Over 1,000, easily. And they really struggle to walk through deep drifts to find forage, like willow branches. Because they are stuck and starving, they become highly vulnerable to wolf predation.
Wow, okay.
Yeah, the wolves are much lighter. They can travel easily over the frozen snow crust, so they suddenly have a massive advantage. So a spike in the wolf population isn't just about wolves deciding to be better hunters that year.
Right, it's not like they went to hunting training.
Exactly. It is directly caused by the abiotic factor of snow depth just tipping the scales.
Wait, I need to stop you there, though. I get that snow traps a moose, but, animals adapt. Why wouldn't a moose just evolve wider hooves to walk on the snow crust, just like the wolves do?
That's a great question.
Why are they so helpless against a non-living factor like snow?
Well, it really comes down to the physics of their size and the speed of environmental change. To distribute 1,000 pounds effectively on top of fragile snow crust, their hooves would have to be comically enormous.
Like giant snowshoes.
Exactly, like literal snowshoes, which would make walking through dense summer brush or, swimming across rivers almost completely impossible. Evolution is a game of trade-offs, and it takes millions of years.
Right.
But an abiotic factor, like a massive blizzard, that can change the rules of the game overnight. The moose is perfectly adapted to its general environment, but a severe swing in a non-living factor can instantly turn its massive size from an advantage into a lethal disadvantage.
That makes total sense. And it's not just animals, right? What about plants? Like, how does a non-living factor completely control a living plant in, say, the tundra?
Oh, the tundra is the perfect example. Look at how tundra plants respond to extreme swings in sunlight. In the Arctic, the winter is long, dark, and deeply frozen.
Yeah, not a great time to be a leaf.
Exactly. But during the short Arctic summer, the region experiences 24 hours of continuous daylight, and sunlight is the fundamental abiotic resource for photosynthesis. So tundra plants, like the Arctic willow, are biologically timed to exploit this.
Oh, I see where this is going.
Yeah, when that 24-hour sun hits, their cellular machinery just goes into absolute overdrive. The chloroplasts inside their leaves are working continuously without a night shift to slow them down.
Just constantly making food.
Right. They rapidly manufacture sugars and instantly pack those nutrients down into their root systems, just frantically preparing for the winter freeze. So the non-living sun dictates the exact chemical rhythm of the living plant.
Wow. Which brings up a huge question for me. If the abiotic sun is pouring all this energy into the plants, and the animals are eating the plants, and the wolves are eating the animals, where does it all actually go?
Right, it has to go somewhere.
You can't just put a moose, some snow, and a willow shrub in a box and call it a day. From what our sources show, the answer to how these pieces interact really lies in the invisible currencies of the ecosystem, which are matter and energy.
Yes. Food webs are scientific models that show us exactly how energy and matter move through producers, consumers, and decomposers. But, and this is crucial, they behave very differently. There is a golden rule in ecology. Matter cycles while energy flows.
Okay, I really want to make sure you, the lead researcher listening to this, lock that phrase in: matter cycles, energy flows.
Yeah, write that down. So to break the flow of energy down, energy takes a one-way trip through an ecosystem. It enters from an outside source, which is the sun.
Right.
Plants capture that solar energy and turn it into chemical energy. Then an animal eats the plant, and another animal eats that animal. But at every single step, a huge amount of that energy is used up.
Wait, used up how? Just by moving around.
Moving, breathing, everything. When a snowshoe hare runs, when a wolf breathes, when a moose simply maintains its internal body temperature in the freezing cold, all of that metabolic work requires fuel.
Oh,
Yeah, so the energy is burned and it dissipates out into the freezing air as body heat. It is gone forever into the atmosphere. You cannot recycle heat back into sunlight. That is why energy flows.
Okay, let me jump in here with an analogy. Energy is kind of like fuel in a snow machine. You put it in the tank, you hit the throttle, you burn it, and it's gone as exhaust and heat.
That's a perfect way to look at it.
Right. You can't scoop the exhaust out of the cold air and put it back in the gas tank. You always have to buy more fuel from the outside, which for the Earth is the sun. But matter is totally different.
Completely different.
Darn.
Matter refers to the physical atoms, the carbon, the nitrogen, the phosphorus. Atoms cannot be created or destroyed. They are endlessly rearranged and recycled through the living and non-living parts of the system.
Which brings us back to the giant tree made of salmon from the beginning, the salmon forest nutrient conduit.
Yes. The Pacific salmon is honestly one of the greatest transporters of matter on Earth.
Seriously.
They spend their adult lives out in the open ocean. And while they are out there, they are eating and gathering all these marine nutrients like nitrogen and phosphorus. They are literally building their physical bodies out of ocean atoms.
Right.
When the migration begins, millions of mature salmon swim thousands of miles back up the Alaskan freshwater streams to spawn. They act as massive, living nutrient packages, transporting thousands of tons of ocean matter deep into the terrestrial forest.
But the salmon don't just jump out of the river and hand those atoms to a tree, obviously. You have apex predators, like grizzly bears, standing in the streams catching the salmon.
Exactly.
The bears drag the fish carcasses out of the water and onto the forest floor to eat. But they don't eat the whole fish. They leave scraps.
And that's where the magic happens. On the forest floor, the decomposers go to work. We're talking about mushrooms and an entire underground network of what are called mycorrhizal fungi.
Hold on, mycorrhizal fungi. Can you give us a visual of what that actually looks like?
Yeah, so imagine an underground microscopic fiber optic network.
Oh, wow.
Beneath the soil, these fungi form millions of tiny thread-like tubes that wrap around and physically connect to the roots of the forest trees. When the fungi break down the rotting salmon carcass left by the bear, they absorb that ocean nitrogen.
Okay.
The fungal network then acts like a pipeline, just pumping that marine-derived nitrogen directly into the roots of nearby conifer trees, like the giant Sitka spruce. The fungi trade the nitrogen to the tree in exchange for some of the tree's sugars.
The result of this trade is just staggering. The trees that are plugged into this dead salmon pipeline, they grow up to 3 times faster than trees growing near rivers without salmon.
It's incredible.
An atom of nitrogen floats in the Gulf of Alaska, gets eaten by a plankton, gets eaten by a salmon, gets carried up a river, gets dragged into the woods by a bear, gets digested by an underground fungal fiber optic network, and ends up becoming the bark of a towering spruce tree.
It's a huge journey.
So if energy is like snow machine fuel that burns away, matter is like a hand-me-down winter coat in a massive family. It never disappears. It just keeps getting passed from the ocean to the salmon to the bear to the tree.
That's exactly it.
Yeah.
And because matter and energy connect absolutely everything in this system, any shift in one area will inevitably ripple out.
Well, so if matter is endlessly recycled, what happens when one part of the cycle speeds up or breaks down? Like, do populations just grow forever? Because a lot of times you walk out into a forest or a wetland and it looks pretty peaceful. It looks perfectly stable.
Right, it looks that way. But underneath that peaceful surface, ecosystems are actually in a state of dynamic equilibrium.
Dynamic equilibrium.
Yeah. Populations of organisms are never completely frozen in number. They change whenever there is a shift in births, deaths, resources, predators, competition, disease, or, environmental conditions.
So stability isn't about standing still. It's like riding a bicycle.
How do you mean?
Well, when you ride a bike, you look totally stable to someone watching you. But physically, you're constantly making these tiny, rapid adjustments with your balance and your steering just to stay upright. If you freeze completely, you crash.
I love that. Yes. Consider how those adjustments play out over time with a classic Alaskan population rhythm. The 10-year boom and bust cycle of the snowshoe hare and the Canada lynx.
Oh, this is a good one.
It is. This is a rhythmic ripple that sweeps across the boreal forest. The hares are the prey and the lynx are the predators, and their populations are locked in this biological bands.
Right.
When the snowshoe hares have plenty of winter food like willow and birch twigs, their population just explodes. They reproduce incredibly fast. And because there is suddenly a massive buffet of hares running around, the lynx population follows suit.
Because they have unlimited food.
Exactly. Lynx survive the winter easily, they have more kittens, and their numbers skyrocket.
But trees can only grow so fast, right? Eventually, all those hares eat up the available winter food. But why do the hares crash so suddenly? Is it just starvation?
Well, starvation plays a role, sure. But the biological mechanism of the crash is actually driven by stress chemistry.
Wait, really?
Yeah, when the lynx population gets extremely high, the hares are constantly being chased. They are running for their lives every single night. And this causes their bodies to be flooded with a stress hormone called cortisol.
Oh, wow.
When cortisol levels stay that high for that long, it literally shuts down the hare's reproductive systems.
You're kidding.
No, their bodies are putting 100% of their energy into muscle reaction and raw survival, leaving absolutely zero energy to grow babies.
So between running out of food, being eaten, and cortisol basically shutting down their ability to reproduce, the hare population absolutely plummets.
Exactly.
And because the lynx rely almost entirely on the hares for food a year or two later, the lynx population crashes right after them.
Yep. The forest goes quiet, the willows have time to regrow, and the cycle starts all over again. That massive fluctuation, that boom and bust, is actually part of the system's long-term stability.
Wow. But we also have to look at what happens when an ecosystem experiences a sudden disruption that it isn't used to, right?
Right. Disruptions to one part of an ecosystem affect many others, and sometimes those effects are permanent. We see this really clearly in the southeast Alaskan kelp forests. In this system, sea otters act as a keystone predator.
Wait, keystone, like
Yeah.
the stone at the top of a stone archway, meaning if you pull the otter out, the whole archway of the ecosystem collapses.
That is the exact architectural concept.
Yeah.
A keystone predator holds the structure together. Sea otters float at the surface, and they dive down to eat sea urchins.
Okay.
Sea urchins, in turn, are herbivores that graze on the giant kelp. So as long as the otters are present, they keep the urchin population in check, and the three-dimensional underwater kelp forest just thrives, providing habitat for hundreds of marine species.
But historically, there were huge disruptions. Sea otters were removed from many of these bays, mostly due to, historical fur hunting or shifts in the wider ocean food web. And without the otters, we get what biologists call a trophic cascade.
Yeah, trophic cascade. When you remove that top predator, the effect cascades down the food chain. The sea urchins multiply wildly because there is literally nothing to stop them.
Right.
They act like an underwater lawnmower. The urchins chew right through the holdfasts, which are the root-like structures that anchor the giant kelp to the rocky ocean floor.
Oh, no.
Yeah. Once the holdfast is chewed through, the massive kelp stalks just float away in the ocean current. Within a very short time, those unchecked urchins turn a lush, towering underwater forest into a flat, barren wasteland covered only in spiky urchins. We call it an urchin barren.
So, if the removal of one species can cause a trophic cascade that turns a forest into a wasteland, what keeps nature from just, I don't know, constantly falling apart everywhere all the time?
What keeps it from falling apart is biodiversity.
Biodiversity. Yeah.
It simply means having a wide variety of different species living in an ecosystem. Scientists use this variety to measure the overall health and resilience of the environment.
Think of a food web like the massive steel suspension cables on a bridge. If a bridge is held up by only 3 massive cables, representing an ecosystem with very low biodiversity, and one of those cables snaps, the entire bridge falls into the river.
Right, there is no backup system.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But if you have an ecosystem with high biodiversity, it's like a bridge held up by thousands of intertwined cables connecting predators, prey, and decomposers. You can lose a few cables, and the bridge barely shudders. The other connections pick up the slack, and the structure holds its shape.
And as we discuss these resilient connections, we really have to address the most important component, especially for a lead researcher observing their own environment.
Humans.
Humans. Historically, science textbooks have treated humans as something completely separate from nature. They write about ecosystems as if we are just, like, visitors looking through a glass window, or an external force that only arrives to cause disruptions.
Yeah, we usually talk about humans as a disruption from the outside. What's amazing here is reframing ourselves as an active, responsible organism inside the network.
Because humans are a fundamental, driving part of ecosystems. And in Alaska, this isn't just theory, it is practice. Alaska Native communities have survived and thrived for thousands of years, not by standing outside of nature, but by existing deeply within the food web.
Through subsistence living, hunting, fishing, and gathering, these communities act as apex predators, yes, but also as careful stewards of the network. They manage the biodiversity.
This is where traditional ecological knowledge, or tech, becomes a critical scientific data set. Tech isn't just, folklore. It is an empirical, systematic body of knowledge built on generations of careful observation.
Right.
A Western science team might get a grant to fly in and collect 3 years of data on a specific river, but an Alaska Native community represents a continuous 1,000-year data set of the exact same GPS coordinates.
That's amazing.
It proves that humans aren't just observing the cycle. We are part of the ecosystem's memory.
They know the rhythm of the bicycle perfectly.
They really do. They pay careful attention to seasonal changes and the relationships between species. For instance, knowing that the blooming of wild roses on the land perfectly signals the arrival of specific salmon runs in the water.
How does a flower know about a fish, though?
Because the specific air temperature and sunlight required to warm the soil and open the rose petals perfectly matches the shifting water temperatures out in the ocean that signal the salmon to begin their migration.
Oh, wow.
It is a deeply linked abiotic clock, and observing it requires a deep understanding of cause and effect across living and non-living systems.
It's incredible. And lead researcher, that is exactly the kind of deep systemic observation you are going to be doing in the Bioforge. We've covered a lot of ground today. You are officially briefed.
Yes, you are.
You now understand that ecosystems are driven by the collision of living organisms and non-living limits. You know the golden rule. Matter is an endlessly recycled hand-me-down coat, while energy flows like snow machine fuel and vanishes as heat.
Perfect summary.
You understand that populations are in a constant dynamic dance of stress and survival, and that biodiversity is the suspension cable system that keeps the whole bridge from collapsing.
Most importantly, you are now equipped to use data, models, and evidence to figure out how these changes move through the world. As you enter your unit, you won't just be memorizing facts. You will be investigating causality. You will be predicting outcomes. You are an ecosystem ecologist.
And you don't have to wait to log into the Bioforge to start. We challenge you to step outside today. Whether you live near a local wetland, a patch of open tundra, or a rocky coastal beach, look at it like a scientist.
Yeah, don't just look for the animals. Look for the hidden connections between the dampness of the soil, the temperature of the air, the angle of the sun, and the living things stretching out to catch it.
Exactly.
Observe the network. Ask yourself what would happen if one element was removed, or if one resource was doubled. Find the story in the data around you.
And as you head out into the field, I want to leave you with one final provocative thought to chew on. We talked about how energy flows and vanishes, but matter, every single atom, is endlessly recycled.
Right.
That means every carbon atom in your cells, every drop of water in your blood was just borrowed from the ecosystem around you. You are physically built from the Alaskan landscape.
That's a wild thought.
So, what specific part of the wild network are you currently made of? Was the iron in your blood once part of a salmon? Was the carbon in your muscles once part of a towering spruce? And when you take a deep breath and exhale carbon dioxide back into the wind, where do you think those atoms are going to go next?
Good luck out there, lead researcher.
See you in the network.